Hi, this is Stephen Natchke from Stephen Natchke's Brevard. That's Natchke as in Nitschke with an A or Latchkey with an N. Recently I sat down with Annmarie Duggan from Coast One Mortgage. Let's see what she has to say about mortgages. So, Annmarie Duggan is here today. She's with Coast One Mortgage, and she's agreed to do a quick interview with us. And first question is, can you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you come to be the senior loan officer at Coast One Mortgage, and a little bit of your story?
Of course. So, funny enough, I got into mortgages right after high school. Entry level, a company reached out to me and said, "Would you be interested in putting data into the computer for us?" This was back in 2002, where everything still came in, not electronically, but everything came in by UPS and FedEx, and everything had to manually be entered into the computer systems. So I kind of started from the bottom up. I've been in processor, a funder, post closer, kind of everything other than underwriting. I moved down here to South Florida from New York about 10 years ago, and that's when I got my loan origination license. About 10 years, just over 10 years ago now. I ended up with Coast One, funny enough, from a realtor I knew who was the sales manager for that office, and said, "Would you be open to the opportunity?" I said, "You never turned down an opportunity, so you always at least hear it out." And that's how we are here today.
Awesome. Do you think your accent has moderated a little since you've been down here, or do you still have the accent?
You still hear it. People tell me certain words like water or coffee. You definitely hear it more so than others.
Because I'm originally from Wisconsin, but I was in the military for a long time, so I kind of have the military accent, which is doesn't really have an accent, but people can hear it sometimes if they're listening closely. My Wisconsin accent comes out a little bit. So.
Now I'm going to listen for it.
Okay. When I talk about bubblers, do you know what a bubbler is?
No idea.
It's a water fountain.
Oh.
But where I'm from, that's what they call a water fountain.
And bubbles, I would think soda.
Yeah. So it's one of the unique things that you can always tell where a person's from. Actually, yes. I think part of New York, around Buffalo, maybe calls them bubblers too. But
okay.
Anyway, how's Coast One Mortgage related to Coldwell Banker Paradise?
So Coldwell Banker Paradise is teamed up with Coast One and ResMac and the whole family, and what they did is just became a joint venture. Okay. Through that, it means that basically we're your preferred lender. People can of course use other companies, but it's nice to have somebody in-house who's there to answer your calls, pick up, help come into the office and help you go through any of your paperwork, sit down with your clients, be there with them at the closing, and we're all local. So it's nice to have somebody right there for you.
Awesome. So I think you already answered my second one too. How is it advantage to our mutual customers? In that, well, do you have anything else to add for that?
It's just they have somebody who's local. It's nice to have somebody who's around, who knows the guidelines, knows the type of properties that you're dealing with, because it does vary from region to region. Someone who can be there for your open houses to answer any questions that they may have, especially if they're selling the house. You want someone who's coming in to know if they can actually afford to buy it.
Sure. That's awesome. Right. What are the current interest rates? I know that it can vary widely, and where do you see them going? I think overall, there's probably specifics for VA, FHA, jumbo, non-jumbo, all sorts of things. But what do you see?
So this is a question I hate. Because one, interest rates change from minute to minute. They may be very different today than they were yesterday. And your interest rates are based off of things like your credit, your loan to value, your debt to income ratio, how much you're putting down, the type of property, whether it's a condo or single family or multifamily, as well as whether or not you're going to be living in the house or maybe it's an investment home. So they do very much change, especially then VA, FHA, and your non-conforming loans as well, and conventional. Their rates range. I don't see them getting as scary as they have been in the past, but I don't see them being as good as they have been in the past either.
Okay, that's fair enough. How long does it generally take to get a loan approved?
Okay. When you say approved, do you mean like a conditional approval or like a clear to close?
I guess clear to close.
Typically, we like to have 30 days. It can, of course, be done quicker. I recently did a conventional purchase that was 11 days from beginning to end. Now, it was one of those that didn't need an appraisal, so that really helped us out because they got an appraisal waiver because they were putting down a significant amount. So that helped us because when you need title work and appraisal, all that factors into the timing. It also depends on the client. If you have a client who can get you the documents that the underwriter wants quickly, it moves a lot quickly. If every time you reach out to them and they need 2 or 3 days to get you something, it really slows things down.
Okay. And what is the process for obtaining a loan?
So it's going to depend on the individual situation. First thing we would do is I'd have a conversation with somebody, find out what's going on with them. Are they self-employed? Are they a W-2 employee? Are they getting alimony and child support? Are they paying alimony or child support? Do they have any back taxes? And then once I have the conversation with them, I'm going to ask them for all of their paperwork. I'm going to ask them for their tax returns, their child support documents, their divorce decrees, whatever bank statements, whatever may be, pertinent to them. And I'm going to go through everything because if you make $49,500 a year, you're going to say, oh, I make $50,000 a year. That $500 may be a difference of them being able to get approved for whatever the loan is that they're looking for. So I like to make sure we see everything. We make sure that there's no skeletons in the closet. If there are, we make sure that we can get around them or figure out how to get around them before everybody gets their hopes up and wastes their time.
Okay, so it sounds like one of the first steps a buyer should have is to get pre-approved for a loan. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay.
I see it so many times where people are looking at houses way more than they can actually afford, and now it's going to be much harder to find something that they actually like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. What advice do you have for buyers?
So, have a conversation early. If you know your lease is up in 6 months, we're not going to do everything right now because we're going to need updated documents down the road, but have a conversation early. Maybe you have, a safe at home that has $10,000 in it. Well, that's not money we would be able to actually use come down the road. They'd have to be in the bank already. So that's something where you just want to know up front, what steps am I going to have to take? I would say get fully approved. One thing that we do is up front, we get all their documents, we do their application, and we send it off to an underwriter. The underwriter is going to double check everything. They're going to make sure if it's something that may be iffy or gray area that we can get around. And that's how you get the faster closings. Because you've already been seen by the underwriter. Now you're just waiting on title and appraisal. I would also say make sure that you work with somebody who you can get in contact with. Make sure you have their direct number. You don't want to be calling some big 800 number or talk to somebody different every time. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure you're working with the same person from beginning to end. That you can get in touch with them when you need to. Because when you're home at 7 o'clock eating dinner and have questions, you want to make sure you can talk to somebody, or at least somebody who's going to give you a call back pretty quick. I'd also suggest kind of going back to the rates a little bit. I think it's more important to make sure that you understand how to get a better rate. Now, it may be increasing your credit score a little bit. And that's one of those things where if you kind of start from the very beginning, 6 months out, or even 2 or 3 months out, now they may be able to say, hey, if your credit score went up 2 points, you could get a better rate. And this would be how to do it. It's also important to understand that the rate they give you today could not be the same rate. It can, but it can't be the same rate tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And even if you fill out that paperwork today, until your rate is locked, then your rate can still change. It's also, you can always buy down the rate. And that may be something that makes sense depending on how long you're looking to stay in the home.
Right. Are there any things that buyers shouldn't do while they're in the process?
Well, they definitely shouldn't quit their jobs. They shouldn't go out and open up any new lines of credit. If it's something that's an emergency, your car breaks down, then talk to the person that you're working with and they will tell you the best way to go about it. I've seen people get excited, a week before closing and go out and open up a credit card for Home Depot and now they weren't approved for the loan. So don't do anything that's going to affect your credit, your income, the money you have in the bank. Don't go paying off, all your student loan debt. Actually talk to somebody who can look at it and see, hey, maybe do this instead or do that instead.
Right. Do you have any advice for people who are switching jobs so they have a job and the reason they're moving is because they're switching jobs, and maybe they're going to be making 20% more at their new job, but they haven't started the new job yet. How does that work? Does that new job count at all?
So it's going to depend on if they're salary or hourly or self-employed. If it's something that's salary, what we usually do is we'll get a letter from the employer with the offer saying this is their start date, this is how much they're going to be making, and everything like that. In certain situations, they'll wait for your first one or two paychecks to come through. In other situations, they can take it just based off of the letter.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any special programs for military folks, active duty, reserve, National Guard, or for first responders, medical personnel, anything like that?
So for any in the military, there's always the VA loan. I think it's one of the best loans out there. You are not required to put down any money. You can go a little bit higher on your debt to income ratios, and it's really great for those veterans. It's something where, and I just want to make sure it's clear, a lot of people think I don't have to put any money down, but then when the realtor writes up the contract with them, they're asking them for a deposit, and they don't understand that. They don't have to put any money down, but as you can say from the realtor side why it would make sense, but from our side, any money that they put down will then be applied to their closing costs.
Right. Yeah, so you're putting down a deposit, it's not money down on the loan necessarily, but that can be applied towards other costs.
Yes.
Okay.
And as far as the first responders, there's a couple programs out there now. Hometown Heroes is one of them. They also have a couple, depending on where you're looking to live, sometimes they'll do different incentives that'll help them also with closing costs or down payment.
Okay. Do you have any advice for sellers? How can sellers make the buyers, the loan portion of things easier? Is there anything that they can do?
I've seen sellers give them money towards their closing costs, and that's something that, it's going to depend on how much they're putting down and how the appraisal comes back. But I think that's something that definitely can help people. Not everybody has the cash for a down payment and closing costs where, a couple $1,000s may make a difference. And I've seen it where the purchase price goes up $5,000, but they give them $5,000 in, closing costs.
Right. How about as far as the condition of the home, things like that? I know for a VA loan, you're going to have a little bit more rigorous inspection than you might for a conventional loan.
For a VA or FHA, they are a little more stricter on some of the things inside the home. It's not so much as the paint color or anything like that, but it's just making sure that, everything's in working order, the house is livable, which I'm guessing most people would want no matter what they were buying. But, and it's just, there's nothing necessarily I could suggest to the sellers. That's usually something the realtor kind of more suggests because most of the time I don't even see the homes.
I was just curious as to how the seller really affects the loan process. If there's anything that they could do, but there doesn't seem like there's too much. Just whatever kind of loan you're willing to take, then
yes,
make sure it's set up. So maybe have a pre-inspection or something like that. Okay. Are there any other things that you wanted to talk about as far as Coast One Mortgage? I know you've got a great website. You've got a lot of videos that can help buyers. I think they're broken down in little bite-sized chunks that are pretty easy. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, just make sure you're working with somebody who is local, somebody who you have access to the phone number, and somebody who's going to be there with you from beginning to end. Whether it's a team or, I always think it's so much easier to deal with the same person beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem doing open houses or I love to go to the closings. Funny enough, that's sometimes the first time I actually meet my clients is at the closing because everything's electronic now. But,